Coming up today on Locked On Texas Tech, we get a Duck download from their head coach, Dan Lanning, including what he sees when he looks the way of Texas Tech. And we hear from offensive coordinator Zach Kittley on what he needs to be as a play caller in week 2. Next on Locked On Texas Tech.
You are Locked On Texas Tech, your daily podcast on the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We're going to start this thing off right. Raider! Everything runs through Lubbock.
Great to be with you once again on Locked On Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network. And appreciate those making us their first listen on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts, free and available for life. Today's episode brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. He's the only Chris Level. I'm Casey Cowan. Chris, great to be back with you once again. Happy Little Friday to everyone who celebrates. We are getting close to what should be a raucous home opener from Jones Stadium. It is Red Raiders and Ducks, of course, Saturday night. And truly turning our attention duckward on today's episode, Chris, is we're going to take a listen to their head coach, Dan Lanning, on a couple of fronts. We'll get to him talking Tech in just a moment, but wanted to kick it off with him talking week 1 for his Ducks. If you haven't seen it, 81-7, the way it goes against Portland State. What did you learn, if there was anything to learn? Well, let's take a listen to Dan Lanning.
I love the competitiveness, the focus of our guys. We talked about what's a successful game look like. Not a lot of pre-snap, post-snap penalties. We did that. We didn't have penalties. We had a careless penalty on a hold, and we had a careless penalty on PBR. Those are two things that we got to fix. But walking out of the game clean from that standpoint, you love. I love the energy from our players on the sideline. A lot of things that we can fix, being better on movements from a defensive standpoint. I thought we tackled well in this game, but there were some missed tackles as well that we can do a better job of wrapping up. I think getting the ball to our outside arm on offense so we can work stiff arm opportunities to break the ball, to move the ball down the field, something we want to focus on, chasing the ball, better with our offensive line and our skill players when they don't have the ball in their hands, something we want to look to improve. We want to be able to connect on some of those shots that, we missed. We still move the ball well, but you avoid some of those third and longs that we hit and had success on when you're able to move the ball on those shots earlier in the series. I think we have really talented running back room. I think our O-line did a good job of moving bodies up front, but I think we saw a lot of things that we can do, even better. And I know that people might not see that from outside looking in, but we're about to play a real opponent. And, the team that we played is, going to be a good team in their league, but they're not going to be the level of team that we're going to play in the future. And, right now with, again, like I just mentioned, Texas Tech has a really good interior on their defensive line. They have good edges, so that's going to be a good challenge for us, moving bodies up front. Our backs are certainly talented enough to do it, but we have to go in there with the right approach.
Chris, you've already mentioned it once this week, man. Handling failure, handling success. They both come with challenges, and there was a ton of success to handle for Oregon after last week.
Yeah, when you score 81 and your mascot is over there just exhausted from push-ups, the duck, whatever his name is, I've given all I can. I can't do anymore. I'm yoked up enough, man. It's all I got my burn going, like enough scoring already.
Big time.
Yeah, you can, and I think that this is what good coaches do. And Dan Lanning is obviously, he's 37 years old. He's very early in his head coaching career, just his second year there at Oregon, like Joey is at Tech. Yeah, you try to find things that, you're never satisfied. There's never no such thing as a perfect game and all that stuff. But like you said, I think a day or so ago, much easier to get people's attention after you lose and, you've got people, threatening to bail out on you and calling for this and this is we're an embarrassment and all the things that come with a loss. When you score 81, it's like, this game's easy. I mean, this is like, what are we doing? There's got to be something that Oregon doesn't know about their team yet that they'll find out about on Saturday night. And maybe they're going to find out that they're really good and that they didn't really have any reason to worry about missed tackles or working the ball on the outside hand and the stuff. Maybe they just got it all figured out. But I'd be willing to bet you that Texas Tech knows more about their situation and the things that they felt like they had a handle on that they didn't than Oregon does. What does that equal? Is that benefit Texas Tech? I don't know, but I think it's just hard to learn a lot about your team, especially out of the gate when you win the way that they did. But to their credit, man, they ran for it. You hear him talking about we got good run. Yeah, you run for 348. I would say you've got good running backs. It looked like it's like, man, is Portland State only playing with like 8 dudes? Because there's, it's not anybody around there. There's somebody could tackle them. So we'll see what we get. But I do think, because I think let's localize this a little bit. If you play Tarleton State out of the gate and you win similarly, and then you play Oregon, we're probably having this conversation like, I don't think anybody would have been going, we got Oregon right in the crosshairs, man. No problems. We wore out Tarleton State, all that. I just don't think that's how this thing goes. But, Wyoming, they exploited a few things on your end of it. And obviously Portland State, not near good enough to do any of that with Oregon. And again, Oregon may be good enough that there's not a lot to exploit. I don't know. Because I will tell you, I'll make this statement. I think on paper, and these games aren't played on paper, because if it was, you would have won last Saturday. But on paper, this is easily, other than Texas, the most talented team you'll face all season. Again, on paper, with what it looks like,
Yep.
Depth chart, the recruiting rankings, all the stuff that comes with it. It's a team that won 10 games last year and all that stuff. But, again, if we could play that exercise, I think you probably would have had Wyoming beat handily, and that's not the result that you got. So, but this is going to be a doozy of a test. But I'm interested to see, and we might not even know it initially. We may see it emerge late in the game. Is it communication issues? Is it, somebody with a key drop? Is it somebody, one of their offensive linemen just getting beat repeatedly? Who the heck knows what it may be? He mentions the missed tackles. I mean, you need to try to do more of that on your own and make some people miss on offense. So if they want to incorporate some missed tackles on Saturday, I'm sure all for it. But I'm kind of, that's the fun part of this stuff. We saw the bad part of sports and all that we love about it last Saturday night. Maybe we get the fun part this weekend. Well, it would be typical Tech, would it not? I mean, lose to North Texas, and then you come back and you beat 5th-ranked A&M. I mean, I grew up on this kind of behavior, so
right.
maybe we're in for one of these weeks now. So
yeah, we'd love to cook one of those up right now, and been there, done that on some of those wild swings. A win in Norman, Oklahoma, pants at home against Iowa State the next week. I mean, we have seen ebbs and flows, peaks and valleys, and it really is a dangerous spot. Coach Lanning and his staff have got to be on their toes, because it is dangerous to get fat and happy. And I think you make a great point, particularly in the week 1 context. You come out of the gate, you've been working hard all off season, and it's just a parade to the end zone. What does that do for your mentality the next Monday through Friday? Now, I expect, just like you're talking about talent level wise, Oregon to have an edge. I think clearly as a team, Oregon looks like a better football team, but for a 1 4-quarter setting, what can you cook up? And as you're trying to deal with success there in Eugene, you're dealing with the opposite here in Lubbock. And from Lubbock, I'm just hoping that every fat little girlfriend those Ducks have is dialing them up this week. It's a classic fat little girlfriend week possibly for the Oregon Ducks, Chris. Just hearing how good looking they are and how well they did last time around. At least that's what we're hoping, is that they come into town fat and happy. As far as coming to town to face Texas Tech, let's take another listen to Oregon head coach Dan Lanning talking Red Raiders as he sees them now with 1 week in the books. First, today's episode brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. And these days, every new hire can feel like a huge gamble. And when we're talking about your livelihood or your business, that's not ideal, but never fear. That's where LinkedIn comes in to save the day by helping you find the best qualified candidates available fast and for free, all on one easy to use and secure platform. So head on over right now to linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to take advantage of their simple but specific targeting tools, allowing you to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to consider. They go well beyond just resume data by using insights from your job post and their 875 million member profiles to put your post in front of the most qualified candidates faster than anybody else. So go to linkedin.com/lockedoncollege today to identify the most qualified candidates and connect with them fast and for free. A bad hire could sink your ship, but just the right hire could take your business to new heights this year. And that's just one reason why it's no coincidence that small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. So head on over right now to linkedin.com/lockedoncollege and post your job for free today. It's so easy. A Pac-12 commissioner could do it at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post that job for free today with LinkedIn Jobs. Terms and conditions apply. Let's take another listen to Oregon head coach Dan Lanning talking Red Raiders as he sees them now with 1 week in the books.
I mean, on offense, they're a team that snaps as many snaps as anybody in college football. You know, you're going to see they're going to be able to go really fast, really quick. They line up in a lot more stacks and bunches than any other team in college football, so you have to be sound in how you handle those rules. I think they had the most snaps and bunch alignments this past week of any other team in college football. You know, offensively, that's a big piece of it. They really have the ability to kind of do two different offenses where they are wide open and then they get a tight end in the core and, you know, can create some run game issues and some pass game issues. They do a great job of, you know, attacking down the field vertically, but they set that up with the way that they, you know, do screens and like quick passes, some quick games. So I think that's, you know, a piece that shows up. Defensively, they're a pressure team. You're going to see a lot of pressures from them. They find ways to pressure in unique ways, you know, and they do a good job of running the ball. They play with great effort. You know, effort shows up all over the film on special teams. I think that's somewhere that they've been really good. They're aggressive in the return game. They're going to try to bring the ball out, right? And they've been able to create some explosive returns doing that.
Chris, what do you think about his read on the Red Raiders?
Yeah, you know, I think schematically, defensively, certainly, there's a lot of similarities in the way Dan Lanning runs his defense versus what Tim does. And I think that, you know, I think Tim even said it going against the Oregon offense. It's very similar to the Tech offense, like schematically, in that I think that Oregon is maybe a little more spread run, but I think there's a lot of similarity in schemes. I just think that overall, Oregon has a lot of talent on paper. And again, if they put it together and play well together, they're going to be a handful to deal with, not just for Texas Tech, but for everybody in the Pac-12 and, you know, kind of have an outside shot at the playoff and all those kinds of things. But schematically, there's some similarities here more than you think.
I was also curious to hear him mention and want to get your take on this part of what we've seen from Zach Kitley's offense, who we'll get to coming up in just a moment. We'll hear from Coach Kitley and actually touch on something that you're referencing there when you mention a guy like Dre McCray. And you and I've talked about this off the air. One thing from a week ago, the lack of explosiveness that we thought would be there, hoped would be there. And we'll hear from Coach Kitley on just that and maybe something that could lead to more explosion Saturday night whenever Oregon is in your house. But you heard Coach Lanning talking there about bunch formations. And you may have noticed, just like he says there, that has become a pretty common theme with a variety of personnel involved, but kind of a common theme as far as the approach there for Zach Kitley. Coach Lanning went on to talk about what that does or what that forces the defense to do as far as the reaction when the ball is snapped. Here again, Oregon head coach Dan Lanning.
It just requires communication. You know, you have to figure out how you're going to match patterns as they come out, right? And they don't always come out the same direction, right? So, you know, they do a good job of changing that up. Luckily for us, I think we do a good job of matching it. So if we do a good job of matching it this week and having some variables that you can play to those sets, if you don't always play them the same way, I think that gives you a chance to be successful.
Chris, can you translate to the layman what Zach Kitley is after by utilizing this so often?
Well, your bunch formations is when you have, you know, a variety of skill player, just what it says, you know, on one side or the other, and you've got, you know, one wide receiver on the line of scrimmage, you know, two behind him, you know, depending on who's supposed to be on the line and who's off or whatever, but it's supposed to create confusion. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to test the communication or the principles of the other side of the ball on, okay, you get inside, you have outside, you have deep, whatever, and you're just looking for somebody to make a mistake, is essentially, and then you've got to be good enough to capitalize on it if they do. All it's meant to do is just try to create some confusion, create a mismatch, and things like that. I think, obviously, last Saturday you didn't do a good enough job of it to kind of create the mismatch and hit a big play and things like that that you were looking for. But that's generally the principle, and this is where, because I think Texas Tech defensively screwed some of that stuff up too on not, hey, we're going to blitz from here. Well, who's got the tight end in overtime? I mean, the 4th and 7 play that could have ended the game, and you come out a winner. Maybe we're having a different conversation this week. And so it's just all those moving parts, and it all happens really, really fast. And so I think some of that is just having to do with you're trying to because that's why part of what I say, I think Texas Tech knows. They knew that they've got some communication issues and some responsibility issues because it was exploited.
Of course, we knew that, the acclimation and ironing out some of the kinks, wrinkles after week one was going to be a challenge because you're bringing a new group together when you're talking about now, at least I'm thinking specifically about those linebackers, and that now compounded because of the loss of Jacob Rodriguez. So it's almost like you're just kind of treading water as far as making progress.
Well, defensively, that is a concern just because there's so much responsibility placed on those interior linebackers from a responsibility standpoint and gap control. I mean, all the stuff that you hear, and that's why because Bo Nix is a 6th-year guy like Tyler Shuck is. He's very well studied. You can read about him. He's easily as good as any quarterback you're going to see this season. And I would say he's hands down the best guy you're going to see based on what he did last year compared to whoever else come. Will Howard, Quinn Ewers, doesn't matter. Bo Nix is the best guy on paper that you're going to see all season. He had one of the most phenomenal seasons in Oregon history last year. And I think I'm right. I think he had one of the best seasons since 2000 of any quarterback playing college football, in that he threw for 29 plus touchdowns and ran for 14 touchdowns. Only 8 players since the year 2000 have ever done that. So, and that again, that puts a lot of onus on those middle linebackers to make plays, not get caught up into screwing it up in a missed assignment and all that. So they just need to be really sound. And I'm sure Tim will be really simple with what those guys are asked to do this week, but I'm not sure how simple you can be trying to stop a guy like Bo Nix with all the weapons that he's got. But yeah, it'd be a lot to ask of Ben Roberts, especially.
Yeah, it's pretty simple to say, stop that guy, but much easier said than done. But yeah, you could understand why you'd want to keep things from getting too complicated as you're trying to work some guys in here much earlier, obviously, than anticipated with Rodriguez sidelined now 4 to 6 weeks. Let's pivot back to the offensive side of the line of scrimmage there for Texas Tech, because I want to take a listen to Tech offensive coordinator Zach Kitley. Obviously, the offense checked one box last week, Chris, that really for the team overall, they weren't checking all that often last year. You mentioned it a couple of days ago, how ironic it was that you actually do get off to a fast start on the road, yet you still walk away with an L. We saw 17 on the board. We saw the offense playing complementary football, taking advantage of some things that were happening defensively, and then it just came to a screeching halt for some reason. You regained some momentum later in the game, clearly to give yourself a chance there to win it, but we know the story. You eventually come up short. And as we referenced a moment ago, hoping heading into this year that explosion, combustion, and home run hitters was going to be a more consistent part of what was happening for Texas Tech offensively. Didn't really go that way in week one. Let's take a listen to offensive coordinator Zach Kitley, self-reflecting to a degree, looking back at what he saw there in Laramie, Wyoming, and what he needs to be now in week two as a play caller. Here is OC Zach Kitley. First, today's episode brought to you by Gametime. And buying tickets to your favorite event shouldn't be a stress-inducing experience, but if you've ever done it, you know it can be, especially last minute. But not with Gametime. Gametime is the fastest and easiest way to buy tickets for sports, concerts, and much, much more. Not just fast, secure, and easy to use, but you're also going to find unbeatable deals on last-minute tickets. And with their best price guarantee, you can stop stressing and start pre-gaming. Download the Gametime app today and rest easy with the Gametime guarantee, knowing you're always going to get the best prices, and you can have them in a flash delivered straight to your phone. Snag tickets without the stress with Gametime, and just download the Gametime app today, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create an account and use the promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today for last-minute tickets and the lowest price, guaranteed. Let's take a listen to offensive coordinator Zach Kitley, self-reflecting to a degree, looking back at what he saw there in Laramie, Wyoming, and what he needs to be now in week 2 as a play caller. Here is OC Zach Kitley.
Back and you look, starting the second quarter, we had 3 drives in a row where it was just like bad football. We were about to throw Mason Tharp a wide open crossing pattern on the first drive there. Ball slips out of the quarterback's hands. The next drive, we end up throwing an interception on play 2 of the drive. The next drive, you have a kind of a fast motion by our running back that he goes too quick, and we fumbled the snap to get you in 3rd and long. So we just kind of had a couple series there that really hurt us. And then, again, I thought we moved the ball pretty well for the most part of the game, but we just got to limit some of those 3 and outs and some of those big mistakes. I got to be more aggressive as a play caller. I mean, again, at the end of the day, that this comes back to me. We got to be a lot better on offense to go win that game last Saturday. So I got to be more aggressive this week and take some shots downfield and try to hit our spots in the run game when we can. And, again, just try to put our guys in the best situation to be successful.
Chris, I was a little surprised by that. Do you think that's a coach kind of deflecting maybe some blame from his players, trying to put it on him? Was there actually some lack of aggression that you think led to some of what we saw? What'd you make of it?
This is why I really like Joey and Tim and Zach as people, because they always are going to stand up and take the blame. They understand, you can't always point the finger at the players, whether a kid screws it up or whatever. I mean, Kenny Perry was doing the same thing about the kicking situation. It's like, that's my fault. We've got to be better there. We obviously didn't work on things enough or whatever. But I think, it's obviously – you're not telling Tyler Shuck to slightly underthrow that one pass that was picked, which is a hash mark to the opposite sideline, a very difficult pass. And the ball slips out of Tyler's hands. You mentioned the motion. Maybe he wishes he would have taken a few more shots down the field and just some 50-50 balls. Maybe you get a PI. Maybe you let Jerron Bradley kind of come down with one. But I think. I think too, though, that it's a player deal too, in that I think you have to have some guys make some folks miss. We touched on this back in the summertime, Cowan, about lack of explosive, especially runs.
Yeah.
You had a long run in this game of 12 yards, and that was by your quarterback. Wyoming had 3 runs longer than that. Okay, they had 3 runs longer than your longest run. And I think at some level, you just have to have some individual performances have to show up at some level too, where you just kind of make a play, and things like that. But this was a shared deal here, whether it's the play call, whether it's execution, whether it's timing, whether it's make you miss. I think Zach will be the first one to tell you our side of the ball didn't uphold our end of the end of the bargain. And, I think defensively you could say that. Special team, we've already talked about that all week. But
sure.
I think he's got a much higher, bar, I think, on being able to score much more than 17 points in the bulk of the game before you can even get it to 20. And, yeah, there's some field goals missed and things like that. You were in position to score that you weren't able to capitalize on, but I think you're looking for touchdowns. I mean, this is, when you're around Cliff a lot and around Mahomes a lot, like Zach was, and what they did at Western Kentucky with Bailey Zappi, I mean, you're scoring 40s and 50s, and obviously the competition is going to get tougher. And they did this a lot. I think they averaged. What did I look up? I think something like 34 points a game last year, and that's with 3 different starting quarterbacks, and yet it was a mediocre offense, but 34 points almost would have won that game the other day, but you had 33, but a lot of that comes in overtime. But you get what I'm saying. I think that they have a much higher bar on being able to score than what they were able to produce on Saturday. So I'll be interested to see what he does. I think that you could see a few more. Oregon will play defense a little more. It won't be as much like scheme as much as it'll be kind of like one-on-one matchups and some man principles. I think at times they'll pressure similarly to what DeRuyter does and things like that. But this won't be this scheme that's defeating you. It'll be just individual play. That's how good Oregon is, that because this is how like the Oklahomas and the Texases and that they just like line up and go, hey man, here we are. This is where we're going to be. Good luck. I'm better than you are. Have fun, and then you kind of find out. You kind of find out where you're at. So some of our guys, I would guess, would get some one-on-one matchups. Do they win them? We'll find out.
Oh, that is quite the cliffhanger, my friend. And I'm hoping, in a game like this, what does Texas Tech have to lose? So if there is more aggression or a few more risks taken as far as aggressive play calling, shots taken, whatever it might be, I'd be all for it. What do you have to lose? You hear this thing this week, which I just think is preposterous, but I heard Zach Kitley asked about it by a member of the media. I heard Dan Lanning asked about it in his press conference. Like, is Kitley just keeping the cards close to the vest? Was he keeping it vanilla last week? I'm like, you lost the game. You're so far out of the vanilla category when you're fighting for your life trying to win. It's not even funny. I wish you could have been in a position to be vanilla, but that just sounds like foolishness to me this week, Chris. I don't think there was any like intent of keeping anything back, was there? Or am I overstating it?
No, the way I would answer that is I think that it's true to say that you really stay with your core out of the gate of what you think you're really good at. Gotcha. Nobody in the country's got their full playbook and everything out in the open out of the gate in week one. That's just not how it works. You tweak, you add to it as the weeks go along, based on personnel available, based on opponent, all those things. And you put in stuff as you go, just like little nuances, and you switch up. Let's run this play out of this formation. All that. It's just kind of how it works.
Right.
They were not like holding anything back. That's lunacy to suggest that. Now, will he have more plays to call, or will they have an expanded offense a month from now than they did out of week one? Sure. That's it goes with whoever, I don't care who you were playing in week one and who you're playing in week 5. That's just kind of how it works.
Sure.
And Joey was really harping on his coaches for the last 2 weeks. Let's just play good football. Let's not screw some of this stuff up. And obviously his message wasn't heard loud enough, because he kept saying to me way before the game and the weeks leading up to it, there's so much like ineptness, out of the gate by a lot of teams on, penalties and just like not crisp and all that. And you fell into it too. But again, these are the things that you just simply don't necessarily know until you get out there. Because there was a lot of bad football in week one by a lot of people.
Sure.
And a lot of head-scratching losses and all those things. But this is the fun part of it, man. You just don't know what you don't know. And it's not fun when you're losing, but it's unpredictable. And I think he was trying to be on top of it, but they by no means like, hey, you're only going to allow to be run these 10 plays all game long. Like, so we don't show Oregon anything. That's crazy talk.
We're trying to win, buddy.
Exactly.
and you came up 2 points short.
By any means necessary.
Yeah. I hope that we are, and it makes sense that, as the season progresses, things evolve offensively, defensively, whatever it may be. So who knows what we'll see in week 2 versus 4 or 6 or 8, so on and so forth. All right. What you will see coming up tomorrow, we're wrapping up the week. We'll have plenty of things to digest from Chris's conversation with Joey McGuire on his coach's show Thursday night. So hope you will tune in for that as we get set for Red Raiders and Ducks Saturday night from Jones Stadium. Chris, appreciate the time as always, and looking forward to being back with you for one more round this week, man. See you then.
Enjoyed it. We're almost there. So keep hope alive, and we'll talk to you again, I guess, tomorrow morning. And then so just a few more sleeps left before the first home game.
That's right. Subscribe on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. so you never miss an episode as we get ready for the Red Raiders and Ducks. For Chris, I'm Casey. We'll see you for the next round on Locked On Texas Tech.